Welcome one and all to the Football Ramble. It's Friday. And what a Friday it is, especially if you're a Spurs fan. The glow of the Europa League is still very much there for them. They're loving it, Luke Moore. They're loving it, loving it, loving it.
They are loving it.
Like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved the Ramble reaction you guys did after the game.
Thanks, bruv.
Enjoyed it. Amazing final, by which I mean it was probably the worst game of football in terms of the quality and standard I've seen.
It lived up to its billing.
Do you know what it looked like? It looked like a major final being played in glorious Technicolor and HD, but from 1942 or something like that.
Really?
Like it was the standard of football was astonishingly poor. And I watched the game back yesterday.
You didn't even go post-war. You went during war.
I just picked. I picked a year at random,
Right?
And it turned out to be 1942.
Yes.
I don't know why. Probably says more about me than anything else. But I watched it back yesterday, and I still felt the same thing. But when I actually watched it, I was at an event at the same time, and they weren't showing it at the event. So we watched it on a little phone, right? And a few of us who were football fans at the event were crowding around this phone. And I did have a moment during the absolutely, astonishingly poor second half, where I was like, we're all crowded around a phone edge just watching Lenny Yoro play football.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a bit of a low for me. But anyway, congratulations to Spurs.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Fans. Spurs have obviously got their final Premier League game of the season at home to Brighton.
Yeah. Is it fair to say not many people expect them to get a result?
I would say...
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they did. They would just be full of the joys of spring.
I don't think it works like that, Jim. This Spurs team.
Jim, have you seen them in the league this season? And B, they might be a bit dreary-eyed.
Yes.
They've had a few late nights, I would imagine.
That.
Did you say dreary-eyed? That's like an insult. You meant to say bleary-eyed.
Bleary-eyed.
Right? Dreary-eyed makes them sound like they're really boring.
Yeah, that's
it's like when you say loathed as I am.
Yeah.
Which you're not.
No, you're not. It should be loathed. Does he say that?
Sometimes.
Jim,
I never say that. There are other things you can have a pop at me, but I never say that.
Go on, do it.
I'm never loathed or loathing.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's not true, but...
Fear and loathing in Spell Vegas.
Yeah.
I do love a loathe of bread, though.
I also want to give some props to Big Ange.
Yes.
I think you've got to give Big Ange his credit.
Well,
because I think, I found him to be like tedious in the extreme of how negative he's been in press conferences. And he started out being quite refreshing and honest and interesting, and there was a bit of light and shade in there, and he was quite good at popping the balloon of self-importance of what football is and stuff. Because he would say stuff like back when he first joined Spurs, like, well, doesn't matter, does it? It's football kind of thing. And it was quite refreshing.
Let him dream, he was saying.
And he would say to the fans, let them dream. Last 3 or 4 months, it's been bad. It's been bad.
Longer than that.
Probably longer than that. But having said that, there is something to be... I just think if a Jose Mourinho, and yes, I am going to mention him, said at the start of the season, I always win something in my second year, and then went and actually won the first major trophy Spurs have won for a long old time. The first major trophy in Europe for 40 odd years. I think people would be tossing themselves off about it.
It's massive time.
It is.
It don't matter whatever, however poor the final was, blah 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 blah. They've done it, and it's huge. And as we said after the match on Ramble Reacts, it is one of the great quotes now in the history of English football. You could even extrapolate that further, but keeping it with English football, it's up there with "I'm a special one," and you can't win anything with kids, and all these kind of things. It's in there.
Yeah,
I do think it might actually be detracting a little bit, that quote, from what I think is really impressive about how he changed Tottenham's style in the Europa League, particularly when he'd been so strident about not doing it in the Premier League and had potentially made a rod for his own back. But obviously, he's genuine in not caring what other people think and not caring what other people say. And a lot of people present as if they are like that, and obviously it's not the case. But
and he also said, Jim, which was a big gamble, and he admitted this in the post-match press conference, not the interview, the press conference. He said, I made a decision, I think it was around January time, that Europa League was going to be our competition. And that's a big gamble for obvious reasons, but what he's clearly been able to do is he's been able to look at the table and go, we're not going to get relegated, right? So in the grand scheme of things, our Spurs fans are going to remember if we finish 11th or 16th if we win the Europa League, right? And winning the Europa League is what... And the dust hasn't fully settled yet. We've still got a league game to go, and it's been a bad domestic season for them, of course. But in 5 years' time, people aren't going to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, they have a chance of finishing maybe even 14th, dare I say.
There we go.
Do you know what? It would be quite funny if
mid-table technically.
if Man United and West Ham, Spurs better their results and Wolves lose because Spurs' goal difference is far superior. If they finish 14th, you'd go, yeah, that doesn't actually sound as bad as what it's been.
Yeah.
Currently 17th. You know.
I do think
so
they could
funny.
get something. I know, as you say, they'll be possibly bleary and maybe even dreary-eyed. But
there's going to be a lot of permutations chat on today's show.
There surely is. But I think they are going to have the wind in their sails and the spring in their step and all those other things. They're at home as well,
yes.
and that atmosphere is going to be amazing. So, Brighton obviously has
let's
something riding on it.
Let's hope the pitch is in good nick because there were a lot of fans, of course, who watched the final at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and then ran onto the pitch, and a very, very annoyed stadium announcer was just like, Get off the pitch. We have a home game.
Excuse me. You feel for the guy because he's got to do it.
Yeah,
but you sound like a narc, don't
Poindexter, total Poindexter. It's a criminal offence to enter the field of play.
Yes, it is. Will we see the Tottenham players displaying their medals during the game?
Yeah, imagine if they played the game in one.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would be fitting with the league form, Don't run too fast. You don't want to slap yourself in the face with it. Of course, they didn't have enough medals for the actual trophy lift in Bilbao.
I feel like this happens in every final. Like, why can't UEFA just make enough medals?
Yeah, it can't be that much.
Can't be that hard, can it?
No, it can't be. Well,
the reason was because James Maddison was being a fucking prat again. Isn't it? That's basically the reason, isn't it?
Well, I should
he
say.
likes to be the main man, whether it's a roast or a medal presentation.
Not even in the squad.
Yeah.
Was it a Sunday roast he was talking about? Yeah.
Due to injury.
Yeah.
So Son Heung-min, Christian Romero, man of the match, and Rodrigo Bentancur had to wait until they got back to the dressing room to get their medals because UEFA said afterwards, to our great displeasure, we did not have enough medals available on stage during the trophy ceremony presentation due to an unexpected discrepancy in the player count, as more team members, including injured players, participated in the ceremony than initially anticipated. So, Maddison did have 3 medals around his neck, which was a bit piss poor.
I guess the way that medals are done these days is that, it's not like it was back in, when England won the World Cup in '66, where only the starting 11 got the medal and no one else got anything for years and years and years. It's a lot more.
Was it just, are you sure about that? Just the starting 11?
It was, for ages and that.
See, Roy Keane would be a fan of that.
He probably would, yeah. But I think even if you had played earlier in the tournament and you didn't, because obviously the substitution situation was different as well, but it took ages for that to be rectified.
Yeah, that's right. You couldn't bring on a sub, And
it doesn't happen now, and rightly so, because everyone makes a contribution. And James Maddison has made a big contribution to Spurs' Europa League victory this year.
Yes.
But there's got to be an element of self-awareness about it. He knows he's going to get a medal at some point. You're not in the squad. I don't think you've got to be Roy Keane about it. And because I think that's almost performative in the other way. It's like the old chat about how some people like to make such a display about turning down knighthood.
Yes.
That it's almost like you're doing exactly the same thing as you would be accepting it. You're just doing it the other way round.
Yep, that was one of my childhood dreams.
Was it, yeah?
To turn down a knighthood and a Brit Award.
A Brit Award.
From the stage.
You could technically still do that if you want. From the stage.
In a way, you turn it down every year.
How would you dress if you were going to go up on the stage anyway? Just in rags?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have a bindle.
Yeah, it's very Rick Mann and the Young Ones. This.
Yeah. Very much so.
And people would say, how can Jim turn down a Brit Award when his poems are so good? But Maddison knows he's going to get a medal at some point. So I don't think he has to be in a situation where he's up there like a fucking greyhound.
I do think you can reasonably expect UEFA to have made enough medals, though.
Was he worried? He thought, Son won't
get one.
Yeah. They definitely should have. I mean, they definitely should say. I mean, it's pretty basic.
They apologise.
Of course, but they apologise by saying this to our great displeasure.
Yeah, and that's all you need to know.
Maybe that's a translation thing.
Every menu UEFA.
That sounds quite sort of. I know North Korea don't generally apologise, but it's so formal. It's always it sounds like that.
But I think it's a very basic piece of admin, isn't it, for UEFA to go, right, how many people are in your travelling party?
Yeah.
Right? We've got more money we're richer than God.
Is it a disaster if there are too many?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think, we should, I mean, I haven't got had a chance to do this yet, and I know I've stuck into Spurs a lot this season. But I do think, in retrospect, if you come away from the season like they have, winning a European trophy like this, Champions League football next season, do I think it excuses how poor they've been in the league and how dogmatic Postecoglou's been at times and how below par they've performed alongside making, I think, quite a lot of embarrassing excuses from the manager in the domestic game? No. But I think the reality is that is a massive deal to win the Europa League, and it can't be overstated how big that is for Spurs. And they, it's incredible, like really, really good. And fine, the final was poor. Fine, Man United are in an absolutely diabolical state, which I'm sure we'll come on to maybe today or tomorrow. But nonetheless, they won it.
They got the job done, and the game is about glory, of course. Well, with all that in mind, if you're a Spurs fan, would you want Ange Postecoglou to stay? Because he wants to stay.
You think he actually does want to stay?
Well, the noises he made.
Is that because of the payoff?
When I say noises he made, he clearly spoke words. Do you want to stay? No, he was very
look. Daniel Levy's a good cunt. That's what an Australian man referred to me as a good cunt this week.
Yeah.
And meant it as a compliment.
Them and the Scots, they're quite liberal with that word. Wonderfully so.
Oh, I can only apologise to our sponsors. Maybe they'll bleep it, I don't know. But it was vital for the contextualisation of what I was saying.
So I also want to make it clear that our sponsors don't edit the show.
No, they don't. No.
Maybe the production team.
Yeah,
So Postecoglou was talking about it's a young team, and the way he spoke, it would be. I can't see. He said that he wants to stick around, basically.
But is that because of the payoff he knows he'll get if he doesn't quit?
No, I think it's more that. Well, possibly. I don't know that, but
he's not going to get another Champions League job, is he?
I wouldn't have thought so. Not in this country. Maybe, but anyway, sticking with what we know and what we have, I think that it would make. I wanted him to do the old mic drop as nobody was thought, but I understand the fact is, if he does stay and Levy and everybody wants him to carry on, he can then go, right, okay, let's try and get back a bit of the spirit we had in the first season, which I understand people might go, oh, you never do that. But from his point of view, I think he's thinking, right, let's have a season where there's far fewer injuries, blah, 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 all this, get some people in, and you've got a Champions League campaign as well. That would be the kind of challenge that any manager would want, that rates themselves and has obviously done good things elsewhere. And he's managed in European football. I mean, he was at Celtic for ages, all this sort of thing. So
it's an incredible opportunity for a reset, isn't it? Champions League campaign after this season.
And so therefore, for him to walk, he may well think, well, if I walk now, does that suggest that I've not got that much to do this? Does it actually reflect badly on Ange? Does he sort of go, right, well, it's not going to get any better than this. Well, lucky old me, see you later.
I'd be amazed if he quit.
Yeah, I would be as well. But it wouldn't be that surprising if Levy and co thought...
Well, a lot of the mainstream pundits were talking, and admittedly this was before the final.
Yeah.
I think Carragher, Neville, one or two others, and all of them were quite uniform on it, saying that these 2 games are going to be his last 2 games of Spurs match, whatever happens. So that tells me maybe they know something.
Yes.
And you wouldn't put it past Levy to make a decision. Mm-hmm. But I've always maintained this season, obviously before I knew they were going to win a major trophy, I always maintained that it was very convenient for Levy to have Postecoglou because it's a lightning rod.
Yeah.
The protests that are happening, the protest from fans, they're not protests about Ange. They're protests about the ownership and the direction. And if you look at it, it's quite interesting how unpopular Levy is, given that they've got one of the best stadiums in the world. They've just won the Europa League.
They're self-sustaining in a way that very few clubs are as well. They're really well run in some regards.
They are, but what people say when they say that, which I understand, but they don't mention, is they've also got a lot of debt.
Right.
So they've leveraged a lot of debt against the club, but they are well run as a general rule, right? But my point being that it's rare to see such vociferous protest, as in the stadium, but also literal protest as well, in a season where you've got what's happened here. Now, I know the league form's been poor, so that explains it, but the protests have been really technically about the endless 18-month cycle of just going through manager after manager after manager with no plan. And there's an element to this now that if Levy was to fire Postecoglou after this, it doesn't exactly make him more popular because they've just won the fucking Europa League.
Yeah, so
over time that will become bigger and bigger in Spurs fans' minds, because there are going to be the majority of Spurs fans, the majority of them, based on the profile of what I saw at the game, have not experienced a European trophy as fans of the club. So it's massive.
It is massive as well. The gamble is, if things don't improve next season, you've then got a Champions League campaign and you don't want to be the whipping boys.
I can absolutely see, Marcus, Postecoglou being turfed out after a dreadful start to the league campaign by November.
Yeah.
That's modern football tells you that's probably the most likely scenario.
I would also think, Marcus, that in this day and age of are we the Super League, that no Premier League team will be the whipping boys in that European League campaign. You're just paired off with teams from like
and in many
Croatia
ways,
and
exactly.
wherever, and that won't happen.
Jim, and in many ways, that's the story of this Europa League campaign, of how much stronger Premier League teams have been, right?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Champions League's a step up, obviously.
Good point. I mean, there is chat, isn't there? You've got the usual names being bandied around that are being, perhaps by journalists linked to the job or managers they may well be interested in. But then there's also that school of thought that after the World Cup next year, Pochettino, you'd imagine, would be available, and might they go down that route? But we shall simply see.
They were seen having coffee together, weren't they, Levy and Pochettino, fairly recently?
You're joking.
No, they were.
My goodness.
Maybe it's an old catch-up, though.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, I sometimes hang out with a guy I used to work with as a Saturday boy at a sports shop in 1997. Doesn't mean I'm going back.
Yeah.
No.
Do you see the bacon crew?
Back. Do you still see the bacon guy?
It was just me.
It can't be, there must have been some kind of infrastructure.
I never asked questions.
You just, a bucket just appeared full of bacon in your doorstep in the morning?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I know what to do.
Yeah. Like an offering from some kind of
bacon
some kind of merciful god. Yeah. You just leave the money out at the end here, take your cut.
Exactly, yeah.
I know about your pagan past.
It's funny, actually. I've forgotten how the bacon would arrive. I need to look into that.
Yeah. We're all on tenterhooks, mate. Maybe save it for a Patreon special.
I could do.
That'll really drive some subscribers, that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it will.
You talk about your sports shop enough.
I'm being sincere. I'm not being sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
Are you still reeling because you said dreary-eyed by accident?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am.
Loathed as you are.
Well, I'm very much loathed to talk about Manchester United now, because that's going to bring the mood down.
Yeah.
Did you see what Luke Shaw was saying after the final?
I thought that was an amazing interview, and not enough's been made of it. Why don't you tell our listeners what he said?
Well, he said, among other things, I mean, I implore anybody to go and look at that. Perhaps a lot of you have seen it, but he questioned...
If you want to be just really badly depressed on a Friday.
Or feel good about yourself.
Yeah, because you're not them.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah. You hate us because you ain't us. Not really.
Luke Shaw questioned whether he or the team is good enough for Manchester United. I think definitely me, and I think all of us, have to question ourselves tonight. Are we good enough to be here? Because this club... this season is not acceptable. And he went on to say other things, but to that effect. I mean, Jimmy, it was quite extraordinary. Really.
Well, I don't actually think it was that extraordinary because over the past decade or so, we've heard players front up in similar ways a lot, and they always talk about the size of this club and how it's not acceptable, etc., etc. And I think I can't really speak for United fans, but I think if I were in a similar position, I'd be a bit bored of hearing that by now. I think if you're at United now, you have to fight to improve the reality of that situation, not wilt because you're not at the level of some fantasy where you're kind of back where you were in the glory days. And I'm not sure it helps the cause really. I think it just adds pressure, and I don't think it reflects reality. And obviously, perhaps that's a bit harsh on Luke Shaw because he said that in a moment where he's come off the back of a very, very dispiriting defeat. But it's the same old thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But Jim, I would just probably throw in there the added dimension of that, Luke Shaw's not been in a position to be able to make a contribution to be better because his body's not
fair
up to what it needs to be at the very top level of competitive sport, right? I mean, that's just the reality. Last couple of years, what contribution has Luke Shaw been able to make?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's his fault. I have no idea what the detail of his injury has been. He's obviously been very unfortunate, and that is sad to see. So, I don't want to go full on with him and say, if you feel that way and you think, and I'm including myself in this, am I good enough to be here? If you actually feel that way, and it's not just the emotion in the aftermath of a dispiriting defeat, as you said, Jim, and you know your own stats and how many times you've been able to play for Man United, and you know the amount of money you're pulling down, and you know you've got 2 years left on your deal and you're 29 years old, I mean, practice what you preach then. Do a decent thing. Move out the way. Let someone else come in. Because Man United, right, and I cannot stress this enough, I know we're going to talk about it in a bit more detail tomorrow on the mailbag because we had loads of questions about it. Man United are fucked. But I don't think people fully understand exactly how fucked they are. That they are in big, big trouble. Like big trouble. And the biggest saving grace you can assign to Manchester United at this point
is a win for Manchester United would have seen Casemiro's salary rise from 375 grand a week to 500 grand a week.
Is that Casemiro isn't earning as much as he should be? No, is that...
Okay, by the way, that was true.
I know, but is the promoted teams that come into the Premier League look so far adrift at the moment that United are going to be okay? That's the most thing you can say about them. So,
a continuation from this season, basically. Yeah.
Essentially, and a continuation of what Jim is saying. I wonder if there's an element here where you just go, Luke Shaw goes, you know what? I can't actually play. I can't play. I'm a multi-millionaire and I can't play. So maybe what I need to do is I need to not bow out gracefully, but I need to find a move somewhere where the demands are a little bit lower, where the focus and scrutiny isn't as intense, and try and rebuild my career. Because if I can do that away from the pressure, I can have 4 or 5 more years at a good level, right? It's not enough to just say, as Jim says, oh, am I good enough? I'm really sorry. I can only apologise to the fans and everything. Across the board, United is an absolute shambles. It's a shambles.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that interview was really, really interesting.
What did you think of Alejandro Garnacho's comments post game, Jim, where he said our season was shitty and now we lose the final. We can't beat anyone in the league. I played every round of the Europa League until now. Then came the final, and I only played 20 minutes. I don't know.
I think actually, there's no reading between the lines there, is there? I think actually that probably does the Man United hierarchy a favour, because if they were in any doubt about selling him, that's probably been removed now. So the talk is that they've got a budget of £100 million for the summer, which in modern football is not much, is it? And they want to activate the release clauses of Mateus Cunha and Liam Delap. And if both those clauses are met, that's most of that money spent straight away. So they're going to have to sell to buy. Now, the most money they're going to get is from homegrown players, and Garnacho counts as that. So actually that makes that pathway fairly straightforward and simple, possibly removes any doubt about, should we keep him? He's one of our kind of better performers on his day, etc. So yeah, I think it's probably him angling for a move as well, isn't it? I mean, it's an unreconstructed outburst. I'm not surprised he's disappointed, to be honest.
I think
he made a difference when he came on, didn't he? He was the one spark.
I just read it as him being pissed off that he didn't start the final, right? Because that's what players can be like, right? The amount of times that players say stuff and it's just basically essentially revolves entirely around whether they're starting games or not is quite frequent.
Maybe I'm falling into that trap that Man United must be infuriated by, which is of just over-analysing everything that comes out of the club, because they're just massive news, aren't they? So nothing happens without it being kind of analysed and criticised to within an inch of its life. But it is, as you say, it's potentially a real crisis point this summer. Because
Bruno Fernandes has offered to leave. He's open to it.
Well, I don't think it was quite an offer, was it? He
Not an
said
offer.
If the club decide, then
he's open to it.
He'll go along with it.
You guys hit on something on Wednesday night, and you said something that I felt completely independently. I completely agreed with, which was that Amorim cut a very strange. You didn't say this, but I'm kind of extrapolating. Amorim cut a very strange figure around the final on the touchline with his selection as well.
Yep.
Timidity of subs as well.
Yeah, and it made it feel like the job. What we were saying months and months ago, that can Amorim do this job? The question isn't that. The question is, can anyone do this job?
Yeah.
In the situation they're in, can anyone do this?
You've been saying that for months now.
And so, it wouldn't be a massive surprise to see even more drama unfold. But they are in a right old state, like a proper old state. And I think also, like, financially, if you look at their wages, for example, I think they're the 3rd highest wage payers in the Premier League and the 7th highest wage payers in Europe.
Yeah.
16th in the Premier League.
Yeah.
No European football next season. I mean, United are a massive club. They're a massive commercial operation, but there's a limit to it. And I think Ratcliffe was exaggerating and trying to, feather his own nest to an extent when he was talking about we were this many months from going out of business, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, at some point, these numbers aren't going to work. The numbers just aren't going to work. If you're paying players that much money and your wage bill is that high and you haven't got any European football and your stadium is a crumbling mess and your brand is a laughingstock, the numbers are going to dry up at some point.
Yeah.
And then it becomes almost existentially very, very difficult and very, very damaging. And, this is a massive institution, right? This is a massive part of the English football landscape. So we shouldn't be glorying in it too much. But
no, I don't think we're glorying in that.
It's bad.
Yeah, this is why Manchester United fans protested the Glazers for so many years.
Oh, absolutely. And
even with Ferguson,
this is all where it's come from.
Because I think a lot of people, probably myself included, thought, but you're winning. Whereas it's weird to think that Ferguson was papering over a lot of the cracks towards the end.
He also was. He's partly complicit in the Glazers.
Indeed,
he has to take his share of blame for that.
And all this stuff is obviously coming home to roost now as time passes. And the thought of Manchester United challenging for a Premier League title, I mean, it's laughable.
It is,
quite frankly. And when Liverpool last won the top flight before Klopp came along, you'd never think they would go, what was it, 30 years or thereabouts. in between times.
Can
There's
happen.
no guarantee.
Blink and you miss it.
And there
Exactly,
are
yeah.
there are problems everywhere you look. So it looks.
But this is way worse than Liverpool, by the way. The only comparison was it was with.
Well, Liverpool
never
hit-
finished this low, did
Liverpool
they?
hit a rock bottom probably under Hicks and Gillette, right? And it wasn't as bad as this.
Oh, no.
Nowhere near.
No.
Yeah.
Weirdly, you'd have probably thought to yourself, bloody, they could do with more of a pragmatic manager. Go like, right, what have we got here? And you think about them when there was reports that they were interested in Thomas Tuchel, and of course that doesn't happen until Tuchel takes the England job. You think that's the type of manager probably that they would need right now. Now, who knows what Amorim can come up with next season?
Give it Giggsy.
I think we're all against that idea. Anyway, this will go on and on and on, and we expect Amorim to be there next season. I think that's how we'll end that chat. Really, very damning indeed. All right, coming up after this, it's the final day of the Premier League season. Permutations.
You know, everything was a challenge. I'd eat an apple in the, watching the TV at night,
Right.
and the bin would be by the TV, 6 meters away or
Let's
whatever
get
it
in.
was. And I would just do it. I had the bravery to miss, and for there to be a stain on the wallpaper, and my mum to absolutely scream at me. But the next day I'd do the same, and I'd be bump, and it'd go right in the middle, and my dad would give me a nod of approval, and my mum would be seething but couldn't say anything because it went in.
Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody.
I can't, as a broadcaster,
Yeah.
I can't gloss over that.
No.
Every time I hear it.
Mm.
What are we doing as a society when we're generating people who can say things like that?
Possibly the UK's oddest man.
I mean, it's a packed list.
Yeah.
A couple of them are in the studio right now.
Yeah, you are.
The bravery to throw an apple core in the bin.
Well,
And also, she couldn't say anything. She can still be annoyed.
she's your mum. Well, who's going to have the bravery to snatch those last Champions League spots in the Premier League?
I mean, I'm putting my feet up here because you're about to describe what's possible to happen, right? Are you going to read exactly what every outcome could be?
So the quick way of just saying this, with regard to which Premier League teams can be playing European football next season, is to say that quite a lot of them can. Okay, that's the quick way. A lot of teams can be playing Premier League football next season. It's possible that 9 could. It's possible that maybe 8. But there's going to be a lot of English teams represented in European football next season. Manchester City in 3rd just need a draw against Fulham.
Can I say,
Go on.
9 English teams in Europe next season, and Man United isn't one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the chances of that? Even like 5 years ago, you said that.
Even last season.
Yeah.
David Moyes' Man United would have been all right with that.
Yeah.
They would have been absolutely fine. But I mean, it could be 10 teams. It could be the top half of the Premier League.
That's very unlikely, isn't it?
And
But
to
it's,
think that your lot and others
possible.
wanted to form a Super League, Jim. Absolutely ridiculous
We've already
behaviour.
got one, mate.
Yeah.
Well, quite literally we do. Manchester City just need a draw against Fulham. Big ask. Big ask. Okay.
It's at the Cottage as well.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. So, but they just need a draw, and they're there. Newcastle United hosting Everton. They'll qualify for the Champions League if they beat Everton, of course. And Chelsea will qualify for the Champions League if they beat Nottingham Forest. And that's the juicy encounter, isn't it?
Totally.
It's Chelsea away to Forest at the City Ground. Forest need to beat Chelsea to have a chance of qualifying for the Champions League, but they can only do it if Aston Villa fail to beat Manchester United.
Although Villa don't have a great record against
Jim.
Man United, so there's a bit of anxiety there.
Jim,
I know.
where's
I
the
know.
anxiety? Where?
Jim, have you
Point it
forgotten-
to me.
Everywhere.
Can you see it in this room?
Have you just forgotten the last 15 minutes of the show, Jim?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Jim, it goes in Villa's favour that it's Old Trafford.
Sure,
We're crying
it
out
does.
loud. Anyway, so there's that. So I've not finished. If Newcastle United don't beat Everton, wins for both Forest and Villa will secure Champions League football for both, of course.
I
So-
wonder what Forest fans will be thinking, because they'll probably be obviously desperate to be in the Champions League because of the position they've been in basically all season.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing opportunity, of course. But if we get in the Europa League,
Well,
playing the football they play, you know that probably
Yes.
they'll probably be able to strengthen in the summer, and Marinakis likes to throw the money around, and they're probably okay for PSR and stuff. They could strengthen again. They have a really good chance in the Europa League. I don't think they've got a chance of winning the Champions League.
No.
But they've got a chance of winning the Europa League.
so I think a lot of teams would have watched what Villa did this season in the Champions League and thought, could we go far? And then when you're in there and the tails are up, you never know. And the thought of playing perhaps Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and all these teams, it is mouth-watering. But I think you know, Europa League would
It's not the same as winning a trophy, is it?
No, it wouldn't be. But I mean, if you're in the Europa League, then I suppose, you know, you think to yourself, okay, there's maybe a bit more pressure because like we could genuinely win this.
Yeah.
I think though that if you look at it against Chelsea, if you offered Forest fans now Europa League, then because that would mean beating Chelsea, because otherwise they're in the Europa Conference League, and without a doubt, I think there would be a tinge of disappointment, even though, like we say, I mean, much more likely to win the Europa Conference League than the Europa.
But Chelsea
League,
are probably going to win the Europa Conference League, and I cannot stress this enough. Nobody has watched it.
You watch the final. It's a proper game. Anthony's in it.
We'll watch the final probably.
Come on.
Yeah.
So there are two ways that the 8th place team can get a place in the Europa Conference League, which is currently Brighton. They're in pole position.
This is like that scene in League of Gentlemen where he's trying to teach him how to play that card game. Go, Johnny, go, go,
Yeah.
And it just gets more and more complicated across the series, like over and over again.
Okay, I thought this was like any scene in the second or third Matrix film.
Yeah, it's a bit like that as well.
Well, so Brighton are currently there. Brentford have a chance, but Brighton are really in pole position, 3 points above them. So 8th place. Both scenarios, Chelsea would need to win the Europa Conference League final next Wednesday. Of course, if Chelsea then finished 7th, and that would happen if they lost to Forest and Villa get at least a draw against Manchester United, then they're there. So that would mean Champions League 1st to 5th, plus Spurs as Europa League winners. So 6 English teams in the Champions League. Europa League will be 6th place, plus Crystal Palace, plus Chelsea as Conference League winners, and then the Conference League would be 8th position as well.
We're not finished.
I'm still not finished.
Yeah.
So that's the most likely permutation where 8th spot, probably Brighton, will get into the Europa Conference League. So that's fine. This one provides a little bit more mental gymnastics, but bear with me.
This is basically like, this next one's like when my son tells me why he can't get dressed to go to nursery.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
But
Why,
I've got
why are you talking about submarines?
I've got to accept it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so here we go. Chelsea finish 6th and Newcastle United finish 7th. Now, of course, that would mean Chelsea losing at Forest, Villa getting at least a draw at Manchester United, and Newcastle lose at home to Everton by 3 more goals than Chelsea lose at Forest. So Newcastle then fall below Chelsea on goal difference, which then means the Champions League places would be 1st to 5th, plus Spurs as Europa League winners. So 6 English teams in the Champions League. In the Europa League would be Newcastle in 7th, Palace as FA Cup winners, Chelsea as Conference League winners, and the Conference League position would go to 8th. So in either of these scenarios, the Premier League would have 10 teams playing in Europe next season. Like I said, if you can remember that first one that we spoke about, where Chelsea finished 7th, that is more likely. I think the first one is like the second one is not going to happen with all that business and so on. So
I don't think our listeners should worry about it.
No.
Just enjoy the football.
Just enjoy it.
And when it all finishes, they'll tell you what's happened.
Yep.
And if you're in a fan of one of these specific teams, you'll probably know your scenario well.
Yeah.
So it's just very, very complicated, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It
Yeah.
is. 10 teams would be really fascinating, with essentially 10 teams having to play after having played in Europe each weekend.
Maybe Man United could win the league because there's no European football to worry about.
just
Everyone else will be
exhausted.
absolutely decimated by injury.
Yeah.
Or maybe they can finish 11th.
Maybe that's what it is. But as we said with the Europa League, everyone thought, oh my goodness, this is a bad advert for the Premier League. No, it's not.
Nah.
It's a shame on Europe,
Yeah.
letting those two get to the final.
We've got more teams in Europe.
Yeah.
Next
Then you've
season.
had hot dinners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forest v Chelsea is obviously the big one, though, as we say. Chelsea, I mean, if Chelsea lose to Real Betis, which they probably will because it's a Spanish team in the final.
27 finals and counting, isn't it? Going back to 2002.
So
including the national team.
that made me think,
Mad.
I don't know if Chelsea will win it then.
Yeah. Because obviously there have been a couple of occasions where a Spanish side has lost in the final, at least a couple of times, but it's Atletico Madrid losing to Real Madrid.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, but you think you'd look at it and you go, Chelsea are much better.
Yeah.
But I mean,
There's the Anthony factor.
the Anthony factor.
The Anthony factor and the Spanish football club factor, or the Spanish factor.
Two great TV
Anthony
shows.
ending the season with a European winners medal is the most Man United thing that can happen to that
Scoring
game.
the winning goal, lifting the shut up, Man
Yeah.
City shut underneath.
Why always me?
Why sometimes, man.
That'd be great. Why sometimes we? I'd love Anthony to score a hat trick just doing that one move he can do.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant.
And if he does a little spinny, and
Yeah.
a couple of Chelsea players just get hypnotised by it and fall over.
Imagine the rush, right? Imagine the absolute fucking fall down to earth of winning a European trophy and having to report back at pre-season training at Man United.
Well, as I forget which,
as a hated player, as the most hated player at the worst team in Britain.
Britain. I forget who it was who said that they need to sign a petition to keep Anthony at Real Betis so he doesn't have to go back there.
Yeah,
that's partially because he's played well there and they like him. Partially because they see that look in it. They see the human in behind the eyes, and they just think he can't go back there.
No, it's like sending someone back to Vietnam after our week's R&R.
Yeah,
is what it is.
A little bit like that.
It's full on. I will never be in a position where I feel sorry for Anthony for lots of different reasons. But this is about as close as I'm going to get, I would say.
Do you feel sorry for Enzo Maresca, who's angry that La Liga accepted Real Betis' request to bring their league game forward to tonight? So Real Betis have a couple of days extra to prepare for
Didn't Premier League do that for Arsenal ahead of one of the Champions League games?
It was. They did help Arsenal out a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of these domestic leagues do that.
I mean,
Is it because it's the last set of fixtures, so they want everyone playing at the same time? So that might be why they didn't do it for Chelsea.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Well, look,
they wouldn't be able to do it in that scenario for the Premier League. No, but I think La Liga's got one game to play, but they're not playing all at the same time, are they? They're playing across because regardless of the fact that Betis have moved, they're playing Valencia at home and they've been moved to a Friday. There are games across the Saturday and the Sunday in La Liga this weekend.
Maybe that's why they've won so many finals. Just done this every time.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
sneaky.
I think Forest have got a really good chance. I think the atmosphere is going to be pumping. I know quite a lot of Forest fans, all desperate for tickets. Yeah. Everyone wants to be there. Chelsea are, by their nature, quite inconsistent. They've also got another game to worry about, which is it more important for them? Probably not, but it's a final and players are players, right? They want to do the business and get their hands on a trophy, whatever the trophy is. It's a funny situation for Forest because they've been so good all season. They have kind of been found out, but their last few games, they've kind of rescued it a bit. Obviously, last time out they won. I think they've got a really, really good chance of winning this game. It's a shame they're going to have to rely on another team to do something for them, but they can only take care of what they can take care of.
The City Ground is a massive, massive asset, isn't it? The atmosphere there is really, really something, and that's something they're going to pour absolutely everything into on that last day. I think Chelsea come into this game in better form. Forest haven't kept a clean sheet in ages either, so I think this one might be a little bit of a ding dong.
We'll find out. Well, it's our live score game of the week, so we'll find out in a minute.
Yeah, we will do. I think people are sort of quick to write off Chelsea these days. Go, well, they've not really done that much to impress, and they've not really played that much exciting football this season. They're on the same points as Newcastle and Villa.
They've got results, though, haven't they?
They absolutely have. I mean, Newcastle, obviously, the cup win and the subsequent sort of form from that has won them a lot of admirers, and Villa again. You're thinking about their Champions League campaign, and it's been quite exciting there. Chelsea in the league, they're very much in there, so it'll be a tough old game. But the aforementioned Newcastle United are playing Everton. As I say, we expect them to get the result that they need.
I'm not sure about that,
But you think that Everton have got a little bit more in the tank? I mean, I just think the way that the last game at Goodison Park for the men's team kind of finished and the whole send off, I just wonder if that puts a foot on the beach, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I just think Everton have got the ability to make it stodgy. And I think Moyes is the character where he says, we've got a lot of pride in this. We're Everton, we've got a lot of history in our team. There's just an element of Moyes. He's a bit like a Pulis type or a Warnock.
Definitely.
He's a better manager than them, but I think he's got the same energy where he's like a bit happy, glories in being a party spoiler, right? And I think, you've got to go into there, that game like that and be like, look, we're going to play our part in this. And I just think the way Everton's set up, the one thing that Moyes has done since he's come in is he's just made them really tough to beat. He's made them tough to beat. And you can talk about Everton and the Goodison Park thing and all the rest of it, but Newcastle are under a huge amount of pressure. They've had a season in the Champions League, then they've had a season off the Champions League. Yeah. Their season's, an interesting one because they finally won a trophy as well. So there's lots of permutations at place in that as well. So I think the pressure could get to Newcastle in theory. Last time Newcastle played in the league, they were beaten by Arsenal. You were at the game, right?
I was.
Were they decent, Newcastle? Or not?
It was quite an evenly matched game actually, and Arsenal just edged it. But I think
Arsenal's not been great, have they?
No.
Weeks,
they look like two teams at the end of a very long season, to be honest, and actually a huge difference maker in the other games. between Newcastle and Arsenal this season has been Alexander Isak, obviously, and he wasn't available. You can never know how much an absence makes a difference, but I think it's a fair shout that it did. I think their record without him is very, very different to their record with him, as you'd expect. And I believe he's a doubt for the game as well. So I suppose that might kind of, tip things slightly towards Everton. Something.
It'll be Abdoulaye Doucouré's last game for Everton.
Yeah.
Should he be involved?
Be a great servant for them. Played a lot. Out of contract, isn't he?
That's right. Yeah, 165 appearances for the club since joining Watford. The moment, wasn't it, for him that he'll be remembered? Would you would imagine was that lovely goal against Bournemouth to keep them in the league. But yeah, he
struck it well. Nice hard low into the bottom left-hand corner.
That's right.
Keeper's left. Yeah.
He chat that he may well stick around in the Premier League.
What is he? 32.
32. Yeah, he's been linked to Leeds. There's been a bit of chat about his wage demands and so on. So we'll see what.
Well, I think if he can not price himself out of that type of thing, it looks to me tailor-made for him to go to a lower Premier League because he's such a seasoned campaigner. Got a lot of experience to offer. Is it Begovic and Ashley Young's finally going, isn't he, as well?
Yeah.
They've got a lot of players out of contract, haven't they? They've got something like 10 or 11 at Everton.
Might be the most in the league, actually.
Yeah. Righto. Coming up after this, the Football League playoffs. And Ivan Toney's back! This weekend, of course, we have some playoffs. The Championship playoff is tomorrow. The final of it, Sheffield United versus Sunderland. Massive game. The biggest game in English football. And it's the best one to win. Trust me, boys. Trust me. Because I've got nothing to compare it with. But it's a glorious game to win. It's an awful one to lose. But Sunderland trying to end their 8-year spell out of the top flight. Of course, Sheffield United were in it fairly recently. But
yes.
They didn't give a good account of themselves when they got relegated last season. These two sides collectively have one successful playoff campaign from 17 attempts. It's Europa League final stuff, this.
You get a lot of interesting stats around playoff games because they're so rare.
Yeah,
like there's obviously not many of them, and it's not that regular that you qualify for them. So that I know that in Portsmouth's entire history, they've never won a single playoff game.
You see, that is extraordinary.
But then the playoffs were only introduced, I think, in like 80s or something.
But still, though, for a side who have experienced promotion and
a lot of
relegation,
stuff, yeah. It's a massive game. I mean, look.
But Sheffield United have a stinking record. I mean, Sunderland not great, but Sheffield United in particular.
Yeah, you wonder how much that actually matters, though, because some of these games may well be from the 80s or the 90s and shouldn't be relevant now. But these spectres do hang over clubs, don't they? Although I suppose in this one, Sunderland have a slight advantage having won one.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and Sunderland fans will tell you that Sunderland have been building up towards this playoffs thing. They knew they were going to be in the playoffs for a while. They kind of played a lot of young players in to rest their team to keep them as energetic as possible. But as ever with this stuff, it just comes down to who manages the occasion on the day. We know that, right? And some of these games can be so stodgy and you can be dramatic last-minute goals and all the rest of it. And I just think it's not quite got the luster now that it used to have because the reward is essentially bending over and getting your ass spanked every single week next season. Right?
Yeah,
I know the players want to play in the Premier League. I know they'll believe in themselves, and I know they'll think they can do it because you don't get to that level of professional athleticism without believing in yourself. But there was a real undercurrent of the playoff final from the Championship back in the day, which was like anything's possible. We get into that Premier League, we can be Brighton. We can. Be
Sheffield United proved it when they went up that time under.
They did it right, didn't they?
Exactly. Really,
it wasn't that long ago. It could be. It feels a long of anomalies.
It feels,
and I hope that is the case.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Jim. Let's certainly hope so. Well, the final is financially more significant than ever. The recent Premier League TV deal means promoted clubs can expect £220 million in revenue, which is up from 170 million.
There you go. Double Man United's transfer budget, at least.
Is that better than winning a trophy, Jim?
Well, you do get a trophy.
You do.
Are you saying that Man United have got a chance to win the Championship playoff final in a couple of seasons' time?
They should put all the
they'd
cash.
be heavy favourites there.
Yeah.
They should introduce like what would you have to be like £10,000 notes and just stuff them all into the cup. That's what there you go. You get it. You can get it all as one. Because if you had a check in there, that's rubbish. You can't have that. But clearly, if it was £100 notes, I don't think they would all fit.
I don't think you can get £100 notes.
Can you not anymore?
There's no such thing.
You could, shouldn't you?
Can you not anymore?
Is it just 50s?
We used to get them all the time on the bacon round.
I was about to say.
Look, how much bacon were you selling back in the day?
Like I said before, there were some people on that round who wanted change, 2p change when they gave you a £1.50 for 1.48 bacon. There were no
unsmoked.
That was unsmoked. Yeah. There was no £100 notes knocking around Edinburgh. That
I don't believe
that made their way into my clammy fingers.
I've never seen a £100 note in my life. I think it might be a myth.
Really?
£50 notes.
50s, see
Yeah.
them all the time.
You can't spend them either.
Can't move for 50s in this studio.
People are too suspicious if you try to spend a £50 note.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, you walk into a shop with a £50 note, people go, where'd you get that from?
Saw a Hearts player pay for a pair of jeans once in a fancy shop in Edinburgh with a £50 note.
Who was it? Name and shame?
The bigger question is, what was I doing in that shop?
Trying to sell some bacon. Yeah. Well, who was it?
Do you know what? I can't even remember.
That's a shame.
There we are. How about that insight?
Anyway,
Well, look,
good luck to both teams.
good luck to both teams, and spend your £50 notes wisely, whoever gets promoted. The League One player final is on Sunday. Charlton versus Leyton Orient. Charlton beat Wycombe 1-0 on aggregate in this semi-final, of course. Nathan Joe sank to his knees to thank the Lord God Almighty, although quite unchristian, making it about him rather than God.
Yeah.
When the final whistle blew, of course. I mean, Charlton relegated from the Championship 5 years ago, so they've got a chance. But Leyton Orient.
No, we're not glossing over Nathan Jones yet. Quite simply a disgraceful display.
Yeah, he's a good Christian man.
It was like a reality show, like scripted reality. That is scripted reality they have. Like, it was so bad. It was like so cringe. So I would quite like Leyton Orient to win this anyway, because I've got quite a few Leyton Orient supporting friends. And I'd love to see them play in Championship, because it'll be a nice away day for me.
I haven't been in the second tier for 43 years.
So from a selfish point of view, I'd like them. Even if I was predisposed to like Charlton going into that Wycombe game, I'm not now.
Right.
And I think everyone who's not a Charlton fan was totally embarrassed by that. And I expect some Charlton fans were embarrassed too.
Yeah, he went so early as well, didn't he? He was actually on his knees for ages and ages and ages.
Yeah. Oh, you know.
What did you make of it, Marcus?
Some people are a bit more overt with their faith and do things than others. That's what I would say.
I mean, yeah.
Just we'll see what he does in the final if they win or lose.
Yeah.
Either way, all eyes will be on him.
But this is the guy who said when he was at Southampton, when he was
dragging up old quotes.
When he was at Brentford or something, he said there weren't many better than me in Europe for aggression, clean sheets, defending inside your box, and XG.
That was when it was Luton manager.
Luton, wasn't
it? It was at Luton.
Yeah, but he's mentioned it then when he was at Luton. But
that's right, yeah.
Chance for him to get into.
Imagine what he'll do. Look at it the other way.
Yeah.
Alan Pardew's dance at Wembley will fade into oblivion if Nathan Jones gets his way. If Charlton score a last-minute winner, what's Jones going to do? Toss himself off, probably.
Who would you rather be stuck in a lift with, Jones or Pardew?
Are they tossing themselves off?
What you interpret it how you will.
Pardew's more likely to, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I think Jones is the safer bet, and he will obviously do something mad.
I think Jones would be more intense.
Yeah.
But Pardew's fragrance would be more intense.
I think Jones you'd leave with a funny anecdote. Pardew you'd leave feeling a bit unsettled.
Either way, I'm smashing that alarm button. Absolutely smashing it. You know, like in Die Hard when the lift breaks in between floors, you just crawl out. I'll be doing that.
That's what you'd have to do.
Good luck to Leyton Orient. That's what
I'll tell you what. Some the playoff finals are always incredible affairs.
Yeah.
But there's something about these that I quite like, I have to say. Right, before we go to Jack's Encyclopedia, Thomas Tuchel's England squad has been announced for England's World Cup qualifier against Andorra, the big one, and a friendly against Senegal. Quite a nice friendly, that. I think one might agree. Ivan Toney's been called up.
Yeah.
Luke Moore, you can't be a fan of that.
I've already seen loads of questions coming in for the mailbag tomorrow about this England squad based around Toney, so we should get into it probably then tomorrow.
Well, I think for more reaction to the squad, we are going to talk about that more on the mailbag.
I mean, I think it's a fucking disgraceful decision.
Penalties, mate, penalties.
It's a disgraceful decision.
He's scoring loads of goals out there. And he'll be used to the heat. Think of the North American heat. I've been talking about that a lot. I like Thomas Tuchel's thinking.
Okay. Well, there's a surprise.
There's an alternative angle.
You're back in the German. That's you let yourself down there.
Historically, I haven't, but it's time to forgive and forget.
Right? I mean, who would you have in place of Toney in this situation?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, we were singing the praises of, say, someone like Liam Delap.
Yeah.
Well, I say someone, specifically Fair. Liam Delap. I mean, in the squad, if you're looking at the positions up front, Harry Kane, obviously, Ollie Watkins is the other one, and Ivan Toney. I mean, Noni Madueke is listed as a forward, but we know he's going to be a wide forward. He's not going to be down the middle.
What is the possible justification for picking Ivan Toney over someone like Liam Delap? What's the justification?
I suppose the justification is that Tuchel is assuming that time out the game at the Premier League level isn't going to affect his maximum performance level as much as maybe the rest of us think. It's hard to have insight on that, isn't it? But that's surely got to go into the thinking.
Well, I think
same as picking Henderson.
I think also as well that Ivan Toney he would be a bit part player at best. At very, very best. He would be third choice striker. Is he going to play that much? And for a penalty shootout, you'd bring him on, he's going to score.
But it's against a but
whereas, but this is Tuchel you're talking about.
Yeah, but you've got a chance with someone like Liam Delap.
But he doesn't care. Tuchel's there to win the World Cup. Who gives you more chance of winning the World Cup? Liam Delap or Ivan Toney? Well, it's not going to be a huge debate because really, if you pick one or the other, it's not going to make much difference. But Ivan Toney has tournament experience with England. He knows what it's like. And I know people will be listening to this shaking their head going, what are you going on about? But I'm trying to get into Thomas Tuchel's head about his selection because otherwise, what's the point in having this chat? So
he's playing in the fucking league for idiots.
Fine.
Right? Because he's getting loads of money.
Of course, we know the reasons, Luke. But you as I say, he's played in a in a European Championship final for England. He's gone the distance in the tournament, so he knows what the demands are. Playing for England, blah 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 blah, etc. etc. Liam Delap has had one season in the Premier League for a side who got relegated. Now he won't be playing he'll be playing in the Premier League next season. We know that someone will sign him.
You've got to start a player like Liam Delap at some point.
You do.
You've got to bring him in at some point.
But on Tuchel's watch, Tuchel is there for a short time.
Yeah, but he's got 14 months until the tournament. They're going to qualify.
They go quick.
All right, we'll do it tomorrow. Little flavour for you there, but big argument Marcus and I are going to have tomorrow on the mailbag.
Well, no, it's not an argument. I'm just saying these
Sounds
are the
like an argument.
Yeah.
I'm going to hammer
He
this.
turns it into an argument.
The hell out
He turns it into an argument and then tells me I'm being unreasonable and then all the listeners have a go at me. He's a master at it.
Mark Gay and Adam Morton have not been picked.
Henderson's in there again, so we have a row about that as well. See how you defend that. Yeah. That's unbelievable. It's like Chemical Ali, isn't he?
Good pronunciation.
Yeah. The end of the season that Ajax have had. My God. Oh, I want a bit of that.
Because he was they were without him. Anyway, it's all about the mailbag tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's not an advert for it. I don't know what is. Fucking Jesus.
No. Now it's time for this.
Dean Smith also says you're an encyclopedia of football.
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, but I do, everybody.
This is fucking massive for
Here
me.
we go.
Because Jim's champion out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And this is the final one. Is this the final one of the season? Charlie, is this the final one of the season?
No, we got next season, haven't we?
No, of the season.
Next week, sorry.
Yeah.
No, we got next week, haven't we?
Okay, fine. I don't know. I'm asking. But if I can end the season as a champion, no one would have expected that.
You'd be the Spurs.
Everyone, careful. I'll be the James Maddison. Everyone would have wanted it, of course, because the Luke Nation rise up.
Yeah.
The Luke Nation are the silent majority. They're massive.
They are quite.
They would never have dared to dream that I could possibly end this season as champion again. Last season, of course, I was champion for most of the season, won the Champion of Champions in the summer, held the trophy, it's still on my desk.
Yep.
If I can replicate that again, the Luke Nation will be stronger than ever.
Yeah, well, make the Luke Nation great again is the slogan.
I
did everyone a solid by being the guy who took it off Vish, then Jim immediately took it off me.
Yeah, no, you let yourself down there.
So chance for Luke Moore.
Can I just say something very quickly as well? Just reminding myself.
You have said a lot.
Yeah, I have. Just quickly though. It doesn't really work if people don't say stuff as a show. I was at a gig about 3 or 4 months ago, and it was an acoustic gig in a church. And as I was leaving, some guy, and it was a very hushed kind of thing. And as I was leaving, honestly, some guy just whispered as he walked past me, he just went, "Luke Nation." I'm being serious. It happened.
Yeah.
So they're out there.
You exist in the shadows.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You didn't even get a glimpse of his face.
Exist in the shadows and tucking ourselves off.
Oh, come on.
In the corner.
No need for that.
There's no need for it. I wanted it. Let's do it. Let's get this out of the way because I'm going to give you an absolute fucking pasting.
Simple game of carrot.
Jim, are you confident?
Yeah.
What about the Gym Nation? Population 1.
Yeah, exactly. Should
be the gymnasium, shouldn't it?
You're
all there working out.
It's Clan Campbell, isn't it?
You're out there working your football fat brains.
Okay. Yeah. Well, look, it's a simple game of categories. If you go too slow, Gary Neville will spunk in a period of 7 seconds. So let's get on with it, everybody.
Sorry again. Someone said to me at the live show once, the only part of the Ramble I can listen to on a Friday with my son is Jack's Encyclopedia because everything else is so rude. So can you stop asking Marcus to say Gary Neville's going to spunk? Can you just say something else?
I've already said it.
It's too late.
So yes, when Gary Neville sprays everywhere. Right. This is a lovely one to begin with. Luke Moore, you're up first.
Great.
You're the challenger. This is a lovely one to start. I think you're going to enjoy.
Do you wish you were playing this one?
As always, I'm just happy to be involved.
Yeah.
Every team to win a Europa League final and UEFA Cup final since the single match format was introduced in 1998. Years ago, it used to be 2 legs.
I love that.
Forget the 2 legs. You're talking Europa League finals and UEFA Cup finals because it was still UEFA Cup into the 21st century.
So since 98?
Since 1998, absolutely, Jim, absolutely. One-off games. I don't want
It's
any of
me
that
first,
two-legged crap. So Luke Moore, you're up first.
Liverpool.
Correct.
Oh, I shit myself then. I was like, I made a big error.
Of course it was Liverpool.
Yeah.
Spurs.
Yeah, why not, Jim?
Oh, going for the most recent one, eh?
He went for a correct answer.
Yeah. Manchester United.
Yeah. Jose Mourinho's Manchester United.
Yes. Atletico Madrid.
Of course they have.
Good one.
Beat Marseille in the final, if I remember correctly. Look more.
Here's one for you.
Go on. What does have it?
Porto.
Porto. Of course. Beat Celtic in the final. Jose
did.
Mourinho's.
That was the year before you won the Champions League, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Couple of times.
Let's have Atalanta.
Oh, yeah.
Beat Leverkusen in the final.
The Ademola Lookman final.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little obscure one here.
Go on, Jimmy.
Sevilla.
I'm surprised they've taken that long. I think they've won it at least once,
Yeah.
maybe about 8 times.
Valencia.
Valencia is a correct answer. This is good.
Galatasaray.
Galatasaray beat your mob in the final,
They
Jim.
did.
On penalties?
Oh, now it's getting tough.
Was it pens?
I'm going to go with Shakhtar.
Shakhtar Donetsk is a correct answer. Lovely one.
How many are left?
7 answers left.
Eintracht Frankfurt.
Oh, very good, Jim.
Yes.
Fuck, that's brilliant. Well
beat
done,
Rangers in the final on pens.
Glasner.
Yeah,
Glasner,
yeah.
wasn't it? Oh, dear.
Who have we got, Luke Moore?
I'm out. God, this is tough.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final.
Dnipro win it.
Has been written.
They lose to Shakhtar in the final. Damn.
Incorrect answer. Jim for the win.
God.
Oh, I could be back in.
I thought I had it there.
Could be back in, couldn't I? This doesn't help me because I've got nothing.
Guessable ones.
Don't fucking help him.
It's Torres.
It's the name of the game, guessing them, isn't it?
Yeah. God. Villarreal.
Oh, well played.
Beat Manchester United in the final.
Well
They
played,
did.
Jim.
Well done, round to Jim.
Shit.
The answer you did very well there. The answers that you didn't get, obvious one was Inter,
Oh, of
Oh,
course.
wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Parma,
Yeah.
for those who
Wouldn't
remember.
have got that.
CSK Moscow, which is more of a tricky answer. Zenit St. Petersburg beat Rangers.
Oh, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking
in
of.
Manchester.
Dnipro. Did Dnipro lose to Shakhtar in the final? I think they might have done.
Possibly.
Maybe.
Ooh, maybe not.
Maybe I'm miles
yeah.
off.
And Feyenoord.
Right.
I wouldn't have got that.
Yeah, I
That'd
think
be a tough
Feyenoord
one.
and CSK Moscow were tricky ones. So 1 round to Jim, but lovely stuff. Good start to Jax. This is definitely a trickier one. Guessable answers, as is the way. But Jim Campbell, I want to know every player who started the 2008 League Cup final between Spurs and Chelsea.
You shouldn't have given us the teams. That would have made it harder.
Well, I think you'd remember who won it, of course. Much has been said about that.
Yeah.
Jim, who are you going for?
We go to Jonathan Woodgate.
Jonathan Woodgate.
I
Cool.
believe he scored the goal in that game.
He
Or
got
a
the
goal.
winning goal.
In extra time, I think.
Yes.
Ledley King.
Ledley King, yeah, made that. He did start that one.
So 2008, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so
Spurs, Chelsea.
yeah, John Terry.
Of course he was.
What, the obligatory Frank Lampard.
Of course he was.
There he is. Petr Cech.
Of course he was.
Easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Belts on the line.
Didier Zakora.
Ooh,
Good shout, sir.
nice. Very good.
Yep.
Ashley Cole.
Ashley Cole.
Oh, yes! Yes. So I've got to get one.
You do.
I'm
Chance.
No, you went. Oh no, I went first, didn't I? Sorry.
going to have a little flex.
Here we go.
Go on.
Chance for Luke Moore for the
I'm going to have
round.
a little flex for you, Marcus.
Go on, have a
just for
little
the
flex.
Luke Nation.
Go on then.
Giuliano Belletti.
Giuliano Belletti, eh? Well played.
Remember
Well
that?
played.
I've got Keenan Berbatov as well.
Scored the winner against Arsenal in the Champions League final. That's a dig, that is.
I was surprised when he said Didier Zakora.
Yeah.
There was another Didier playing.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Mr.
of
Drogba,
course, yeah.
of course. Aaron Lennon, Alan Hutton.
Keenan Berbatov, surely.
Yeah, Berbatov
Yeah.
up front, yeah. Jermaine Genius, John Obi Mikel, Michael Essien, Nicholas Anelka, Pascal Chimbonda, Paul Robinson, Ricardo Cavalli, Robbie Keane, Sean Wright-Phillips, Steve Malbronk,
Oh, I wouldn't
and
have got
Wayne
that.
Bridge. So
One
yeah.
each.
A funny one that, what it does to you. Okay, round 3. It's the last frame of the day.
We must have a decider.
Yes, we must. Luke Moore, you're up first. Well, this is a doozy. This is a tricky one.
God.
Every permanent Leeds United manager since the year 2000.
Fucking hell.
Yes, that is the right response. Luke Moore, you're up first.
Okay. Oh, goodness me.
Well, come on, you can get it started.
I can get us started. Marcelo Bielsa.
Yeah, that was the one.
Jesse Marsh.
Jesse
Oh, very
Marsh.
good.
Lovely
Forgot about
stuff,
him.
Jim. This is one of those ones where I'm sitting here. I've got the answers in front of me and I'm going, I've only got one answer.
Big Steve Evans.
Stevie Evans. Yeah.
Well, was he permanent? Did it count? Sam Allardyce?
He was permanent, yeah, it does count. Permanent for those 4 matches or whatever it was.
We must be better at the topics. Daniel Farker.
Daniel Farker, of course, the current one.
George Graham.
George Graham.
Oh.
Well, Jim Campbell, I'm afraid that...
Yes!
Oh, is he
Too
not in
early.
there?
Too early.
Too early.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
I'm
Fuck's
fucking
sake.
pleased because I was running short, man. Paul Heckingbottom.
Oh, I mean, Jim Campbell. George Graham. He left Leeds in 1998. Yeah.
Oh, well.
A tricky one. Brian McDermott, Darko Milanic, Dave Hockaday.
There's Paul Heckingbottom in there.
David O'Leary's in there.
Of course he is.
The easy when you have the answers, though. Dennis Wise, Eddie Gray, Gary Monk, Gary McAllister, Javi Gracia, Kevin Blackwell, Neil Redford, Neil Warnock, Paul Heckingbottom, as you say.
Yes.
Peter Reid,
Warnock was
Simon
there for me.
Grayson,
Should have gone for that.
Terry Venables, Thomas Christensen, and Uwe Rossler. That was, I mean,
That's a tough one.
it was a tough one.
If you don't care about Leeds like most people.
There's no need to have a dig at Leeds. But what you have done is you've given that man the belts.
Yeah, so I will
Shout
have a
out
dig
the
at
nation.
Leeds.
Shout out the nation.
And the Luke Moore Nation are back in control of the belts.
Yes.